Jerusalem, and there be judged of these things before me. This Festus is another rascal. Paul is not only in the midst of the den of thieves, he is in the midst of a bunch of rascals. And that completes that section. Now let's move on to section verse 10. And verse 10, then said Paul, I stand at Caesar's judgment seat, where I ought to be judged. To the Jews have I done no wrong, as though very well knowest, as thou very well knowest. There are some people who think that Paul made a mistake here, that he could never have appealed to Caesar. They think he could simply have let his case rest with Festus. Friends, don't you see that Festus was going to use Paul for his own political ends? Festus was going to take Paul back to Jerusalem. Perhaps Festus was receiving bribes from the Jews who had come from Jerusalem. I am reluctant to criticize Paul. I don't think that he made a mistake here. Paul was a Roman citizen, and he exercised his right as a citizen, which was the normal and the right thing for him to do. Going back to Jerusalem would have surely meant death for him. He didn't purposely make himself a martyr. In fact, he did what he could to avoid martyrdom. Friend, there are a people today who wear a hair shirt, and God didn't give it to them. In other words, they like to take the position of a martyr. I've had a number of people who have told me that I should rejoice that I have a cancer because now I can suffer for Christ and maybe die for Christ. And I'm talking about J. Vernon McGee. I'm reading from Through the Bible by J. Vernon McGee. And he seemingly gave me permission to use his commentaries as long as I preach better than he did, which is a proviso I probably can't keep up with, so that might take away that permission. But I do want to thank Chad for giving me volume 4. I have 3 series of these, and this is the only volume 4. Volume 4 is Matthew through Romans, and of course Acts is in that series. Apparently, Aunt Donna had her husband Don had this before me, and apparently it looks like he preached through this or taught through this in his Sunday school class. Well, I can tell you, I don't feel that way about it. I want to get rid of the cancer. I want to live. I think a person is depressed spiritually and mentally if he wants to put on a hair shirt and lie on a cold slab. Martin Luther tried that, and he found it didn't accomplish anything. You will remember that 2 years before this, the Lord had appeared to Paul and had promised him a trip to Rome in Acts chapter 23 and verse 11. That's what is taking place. He went to Rome by the will of God. He was in chains, but the Lord hadn't told him how he would get to Rome. This was God's method for him. When Paul wrote to the Romans, he told them that he was praying to be able to come to Rome, and he asked them to pray that he might be able to come. Romans chapter 1, verse 9 and 10, chapter 15, verse 30 through 32. I believe he went to Rome by the will of God. And I believe that he was told before he returned to Jerusalem that he was going to go to Rome, and how he was going to go to Rome, and how he was going to die. He wasn't given every step of the way, but he was given the end at some point, and he knew very well what that end would be. And that concludes this section.